Swarajya Conversations. I'm Rishabh Rekhade for Swarajya magazine. With me is someone who needs very little introduction. He's a tech entrepreneur and an investor extraordinaire. Some call him the Michael Bloomberg of India. He's the Guardian MP of the Rajya Sabha for the state of Karnataka, Mr. Rajeev Chandrasekhar. Welcome, Mr. Chandrasekhar.
Thank you.
Thank you for talking to us. Recently, members allegedly of the CPIM youth wing vandalized a resort in Kumarakom, Kerala, where you have commercial interests. According to them, the resort was encroaching on government land. But incidentally, AsiaNet News, another entity that you have commercial interests in, exposed the encroachment of land by who is now the now former Kerala Transport Minister, Thomas Chandy. Does it disappoint you that despite being a progressive state that wants to become the tourism powerhouse of the country, the communist cadre indulged in such brazen violation of right to property and right to private business?
No, I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but it obviously should disappoint everybody that an elected government in a democracy like ours, instead of resorting to use of law when there are disputes between business and the government, unleashes hooliganism and violence. And it is even more disappointing because Kerala is a state that traditionally has lagged behind most other states in terms of creating employment opportunities and investment because of its long track record of Marxist violence. And that is why you see so many people, youngsters, having to go out to the Middle East and work in very, very trying conditions. So I think it is not so much disappointment as a kind of a sense of disgust that even in this day and age in 2017, the left politics still depends on this very failed, outdated Stalinist narrative of violence and intimidation. It may have worked for them in the past. Unfortunately, in this case, it will not. And to me, it signals that they are deeply worried and deeply concerned, and the ground is slipping from under their feet. And in the absence of any other response, they resort to violence.
So, how would you judge the state of entrepreneurship in Kerala?
I think the problem is that I think ever since the government of the left was elected in May 2016, on the back of a wave of revulsion against the outgoing Congress government's corruption, Kerala has pretty much kissed goodbye to investments and entrepreneurship for 5 years. So till the left government goes off, or till the left government changes its way of approaching the economy, private investment and entrepreneurship is unfortunately not going to be visible in Kerala. And the proof of that is quite obvious. You see that almost 20 months after the government has taken over, the left government has taken over, there is not one dime of private capital that has come in, not one private job that has been created that was not already there. And that doesn't bode well for an economy and a state that has 100% literacy and a demographic of eager young Malayalis looking for a better standard of living and opportunities in life.
Okay. Changing tack a little bit, you had a successful career as a technocrat wherein you worked with companies like Intel. Then you had this entrepreneurial career building some of India's greatest brands. And finally, you've made this call to join public life. Do you believe that successful businessmen, even those who have created legitimate wealth, are still viewed with suspicion in this country?
No, look, I think to a large, vast majority of Indians, it is not a problem. I think they welcome people who join the public life and politics to give back, to serve. But to the conventional class of politicians, this new group of politicians who are basically people like me who have already had a successful career, we have created our wealth, and want to now join politics to change the way things are in this country, to the group of status quo politicians who've always done politics in a certain manner, we represent a threat. And so therefore there is all this pushback, there is a lot of resistance. But when I joined politics in 2006, when I was sworn in on the first day, I had a couple of left MPs sitting there and whispering loudly to each other about how businessmen had come into politics. I realized from that day onwards that my my time in politics will not be as easy for as a conventional politician, and therefore I had to work harder, make a stronger mark about my politics and public life than anybody else, and I have done that. But that doesn't mean that people are not threatened by this kind of person or these kind of people, and but that is par for the course. I handle them. I have to handle them because I'm determined to make my career in politics a meaningful one. I come from a long track record and history of public service. My father was in the Air Force, so I know what it is like to serve the nation. And I really truly believe politics is my way of serving the nation, just like my father and countless other people serve the nation in uniform. So it does cause a bit of a bother for a lot of people who are conventional politicians, but I'm not here to please them. As a matter of fact, I'm here to get rid of them.
Okay. Many Western countries have had examples of entrepreneurs and businessmen, such as, to give you a few examples, Bloomberg or George Bush, being in the forefront of ushering in an era of urban transformation by becoming involved in urban politics. Why don't we see that in India?
No, I think to be a little immodest, I think I am the first one who has made the attempt. I think most people who have successful track records in entrepreneurship resist getting into politics because they're intimidated by the challenges that conventional, traditional politics represents for somebody coming in from the outside. It was challenging for me, it was difficult for me as well. But I was determined from day one to make sure that I surmount those challenges. I fight those pushbacks. So I think in a way I am the first, or what I hope would be many more people who are not the traditional politicians, who are entrepreneurs, who are professionals, who want to chuck up a job and say, let me do something for my communities, let me do something for my city, let me do something for my state, let me do something for my country. And I hope I am in a sense creating a roadway or a path or a runway for many more people to be more comfortably entering politics, unlike the challenges I faced when I joined. But for our country, it is important that we get more and more non-traditional politicians into politics and government. It is very critical that our politics and democracy starts getting rounded off and being shaped by many different views rather than just one group of elite traditional politicians that are descended from the Congress party or wherever they come from. So I think I am the harbinger, I hope, of some kind of a new wave of people coming into politics, and I'm pretty confident that in coming months and years there will be more and more people like me in politics.
But going specifically to the issue of urban India, is that going to change given that the majority of, let's say, mayors, or depending on which city you're in, on what format you're following, the majority of them are chosen by some party high command, usually based out of Delhi, then there's no incentive for a young entrepreneur to get involved in his own city?
So the answer is, I think we will not know unless more and more people try.
Okay.
I think today what we have is people who want to make a difference and want to change their cities or want to change their states or change the government in the center. Too many people are sitting on the sideline and becoming commentators rather than activists. I think if you are determined, if you are keen to make a difference in your community, in your city, writing a blog or tweeting about it or doing a Facebook post is not just enough. I think out of those hundreds and millions of people who are frustrated with what's going on, a few will have to take the step forward and say, look, I will enter active politics and I will start shaping a new narrative on what governance is. I will start shaping a new narrative of what people really want out of their mayors, ministers, chief ministers and central ministers, and then hopefully be catalyst for thousands and hundreds and thousands of people joining forth and creating a new direction of government and politics. But like you correctly said, Mayor Bloomberg today transformed New York. He was a successful businessman. He was in media. He was a billionaire, and he did a tremendous amount of work in transforming a city like New York that was going through its own peculiar challenges in law and crime and investment. I can't, from the world of me, understand why in India we can't do that. There are so many smart people, there are so many independently wealthy people who don't necessarily depend on politics for their livelihood. That we should see more and more of these people successful people in politics. And I hope it comes true.
You've been the guardian MP of Bengaluru, raising issues of critical public importance, and you've taken on politicians across the spectrum. So what has been the pushback from the political class in the city?
No, look, I think let's be clear about one thing. Bengaluru today has seen a decline for many years because it has become almost a symbol of political exploitation. It is a city where, and I'm not overstating this is a fact. This is a city where government and governance has been captured by vested interests. The citizen's voice, and as it's been famously said, a city is about its citizens. And unfortunately, in Bengaluru, the city is absolutely not about its citizens. It is about a few businesses. It is about a few politicians, and it's about a few crony vested interests, where citizens are increasingly caught as being out of every decision-making loop there is. Every decision is being taken in a dark room somewhere, driven by an agenda that is not obvious to anybody. And that is why you find more and more citizens are in courts fighting a government that is supposed to serve them. So you have extremely large amounts of PIL. Now, I have been at the forefront of this. I have provided leadership and support for all of these citizens' activities. And I get I realize this from very early on, that I will be subject and I will be targeted by attacks by all of those people whose vested interests I'm trying to unravel. And so legitimately I will be attacked on social media, I will be attacked by planted articles, I will be attacked politically, people will threaten me, people will try and defame me, people have gone low as trying to drag my family into it. But I am not very fazed by that, because I calculated very upfront when I set out to do this, that if you want to clean the sewage in the sewers, you have to first step in there, and you are going to get some of it to splash on you. So I quite understand the anxiety and the worry of a lot of people whose shops I'm trying to shut down, whose businesses and whose interests I'm trying to expose. They will attack me, but I think they will find that in attacking me, they've picked somebody who is reasonably steadfast in what my ultimate objective is. And I was told early on by my father that you are also known by the enemies you keep, not just by the friends. So in a sense, I wear the list of my enemies quite proudly as decorations on my chest.
Okay. So you've referred to this, the spate of attacks that you received in Karnataka. What about the spate of attacks that you're receiving from the CPM in Kerala?
No, so I think it's the same thing. I think they're two sides of the same coin. Look, CPM and the Congress, for example, in Kerala have enjoyed this little cute, cozy duopoly for 70 years. It's 5 years of CPM, and they do what they have to do and exploit the state, destroy the state, then 5 years of Congress, and they do their bank account filling, and that merry little merry-go-round has been going on for 70 years. And I think it is only recently that there has been a concerted challenge to that duopoly. From the 2016 assembly elections, when I campaigned intensively, the Prime Minister campaigned intensively, and we outed this duopoly. We called it out for what it is. Now, any political establishment that finds the ground shifting from below its feet will resort to this. This is when you run out of options, you do what you have available to you. And I always say, political frustration makes you do politically stupid things. And the violence being unleashed on me in Kerala, or the verbal abuse and defamation that has been thrust on me in Bengaluru, are signs not of any great political acumen or great anything. It is just political frustration. And it is almost like it is signaling the inevitability of what the last chapter of their stories will be. And the last chapter of the stories will be consigned to political oblivion. And that I'm very clear about, because there is no way, in any logical way, that the Marxist ideology has any place in today's modern India. You think about it. For a young Indian, whether it's a young Malayali or a young Tripurite or a young Bengali, what does the Marxist ideology take you? Where does it take you? It takes you into what? It takes you into nothing. It does not talk about an economic model that even their parent country China today is adopting, of private capital, private enterprise, entrepreneurship, creation of jobs, creation of opportunity. So when these ideologies are clearly going into a cul-de-sac and into a roadblock from which there is no turning back or there is no future, they have to adopt essentially the only tool that they have, which is intimidation, violence. And I always say a dying ideology is most violent in its death throes. They thrash around, they fling, flay, inflict violence, abuse, curse, and that is what you are seeing in the Congress in Karnataka, and you are seeing in the CPM in Kerala.
Okay. You've built a strong media brand much before you entered public life. However, ownership of media is a very touchy subject in democracies.
Correct.
Even though it is known that the channels that you run have ideological sensibilities quite different from your own at times,
Right.
do you think politicians or persons in public service should refrain from owning media houses given the inherent conflict of interest in them?
So here's my answer to that. I think it's a complex, it's a tough question to answer generally. But here is the simple answer. I think media, the moment it is politically agenda driven, automatically loses credibility. So the only way media brands can be credible and can have large audiences is when the media brand has credibility. So the core question is, does the media brand represent credibility, integrity, honesty? Because only then can it deliver success. The ownership of a media brand does not automatically guarantee failure, nor does it guarantee bias, nor does it guarantee success. What guarantees success or failure is what the media brand does. And I think that is where the narrative and the discussion should go. Trying to create these plain vanilla sort of straitjacketing and saying if a media is owned by a corporate, it will be biased, or all biased media will be owned by a corporate, or if a media has political, if the owner of the media company has political linkages, it will be biased. I think that is missing the woods for the trees, because there is no media organization in the world today whose editors don't have a political view, or the owners don't have a political view. It's not like media organizations around the world, whether they're BBC or Fox or CNN, their editors don't have a political view. They're not sitting in some vacuum where they say will not listen to anything political. So that is not the point. The point is really that does the media brand, in my case, does Asianet News or Suvarna News or Kannada Prabha or Republic or Newsable or the various digital properties, do they consistently represent one political line? Are they talking about the truth, or are they peddling falsehoods? That is the way that we should measure media, which is that they must be credible, they must be delivering stories that are based on integrity. You may agree or disagree with them, is a different issue, because in India today, as is in the rest of the world, there is a polarization in terms of politics and views on everything. So issue is really about credible, high integrity points of view that are put out on platforms. And I think in my case, the media businesses that I invested in before my politics. Some of them are after my politics. But I have consistently maintained that those entities are entities that I am building as brands to be credible, to be respected, not to peddle my line or not to peddle any particular political party's line. You know for a fact that, for example, my channels have been boycotted by political parties to which I'm supporting in Kerala. The BJP has boycotted the Asianet News in Kerala. The BJP boycotted Suvarna News in Karnataka. Suvarna News and Kannada Prabha have exposed stories and against the government, both in the BJP and in the Congress. So it is all very, very, let's say, easy for people for the moment to forget the pedigree of a brand and say what is convenient to them, saying, no, this channel is reporting against me because he happens to be politically of the other dispensation. I can assure you that my brands are brands that will tell stories that are compelling truths. They are not neutral, but they will tell you the truth. They don't take a political line that is A or B. And in most cases, many cases, there are many times that I am at odds with my own brands in terms of stories that they put out. So that's normal.
Okay, granted, maybe you're the exception and maybe you're the new kind of politician. But going back to this question, the media has always been considered the fourth pillar of democracy, one that keeps the other three, the judiciary, the executive, and the legislative, in check. In a more generic sense, isn't there a danger to the independence of the media if a politician directly owns it? We have cases of other politicians in India owning channels. I think Jaya TV was owned by Jayalalitha, and it would not report against Jayalalitha's government. The same holds true with Shiv Sena's paper in Maharashtra.
Yeah. No, so I think to have propaganda platforms, there's nothing that you can stop from a particular party having a propaganda platform. So let's say the CPM has one in the Kerala, or Congress has one in Kerala, AIADMK has in Tamil Nadu, other parties have it elsewhere, and so on and so forth. There's nothing wrong with having propaganda platforms. The Communist Party of the USSR had Pravda. But people will know propaganda platform from independent media very quickly. That's my point. That there is no need to worry that an Indian viewer or Indian reader doesn't understand a propaganda platform from an independent news platform. They are smart enough to understand that. So I think creating these prohibitions only makes things go underground. If you say that there cannot be any explicit ownership of a media platform by a political party, all you will have is some subterfuge where somebody will own it in a benami manner. So I am for everything being in the open. I am for respecting the viewer and the reader's intelligence. They know what is a line, what is propaganda, what is spin, and what is real, genuine reporting. But I have another point to say, which is that we must also talk about media generally in India over the last 70 years. And while there have been pockets of excellence, to a large part, media in the country have been silent spectators to government. There hasn't been enough real anti-establishment media in that sense. So if you look at the entire 10 years of UPA, all those scams, including the ones that I raised in Parliament and put myself at great risk of, and you talk about the Congress attacking me now, the Congress attacked me then. There was very little reportage in any conventional media. So I can toss the question back at you, saying that assuming there is independent media, which are not politically owned by your definition, are they fulfilling the responsibility of the fourth pillar of our democracy? So I would answer that, if I may answer it, I would say that yes, in some parts, but to a large part, media has continued a left of center narrative and discourse, and when it comes to their own favorite people in that political space, have turned a blind eye or have been far more forgiving of what they do or their misdemeanors or crimes or scams than an independent media would have been. So I think the debate should be about where is media, what is the quality of media, are they fulfilling the fourth pillar of the democracy role that they are supposed to fulfill, and is that connected to ownership, or is that connected to just a certain creeping left ideology that has crept into media and in a sense captured it for several decades?
Okay. I think it's honestly just co-option by Lutyens Delhi, and people,
that is one way of looking at it as well. So I think the point is not ownership as much as the people who are in media, because they are the ones who make media.
Okay. So Are there any structural changes that you would suggest that can facilitate more professionals such as yourself entering politics on a much larger scale?
No, I think. Look, the best way is for media and other members of civil society and society to encourage this. I think, you know, it is always a problem when I am a politician. I am in Rajya Sabha and I can't say I have 10 lakh people supporting me from that constituency. My constituents are all around the country. So I think the more people come out there and support this kind of politics, this kind of politician, we are in it to make some real change. We are in it in a fearless manner to create, to use a cliche, a new India, and to really do our bit in serving the nation. And when we upset the apple carts of a lot of the status quo's vested interests, and they gun for people like us, it would be useful to have more and more people say, recognize this gunning hate job as what it is, saying that look, you are actually gunning for a guy or a person or a lady who's trying to do a good job, but we won't let you do it. We want more and more of these people in politics rather than less and less. And we will not allow people to be intimidated. We will not allow people to be driven away from politics just because you don't like it.
Okay, that's the media side of things. So what should political parties themselves?
No, I think no. Look, I didn't mean that by as media. I meant that as citizens.
Right.
Citizens. I mean people. Look, political parties will respond to citizens.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is for more and more of civil society and people and citizens to say, we want politicians who have made their money before they entered politicians. That is, entrepreneurs who turn politicians better rather than politicians who turn entrepreneurs.
Right.
You understand the difference? So political entrepreneurship, as we see in our state, in Karnataka, everybody in the cabinet is a political entrepreneur. Or we want less of that, and we want more and more successful people, whether they are farmers who have been successful, whether they are scientists who are successful, engineers who are successful, whatever, coming into politics with a sense of service, and the political parties and the conventional political establishment making it easy for this new talented group of people to play the role in politics. That only people of India can make political parties do. It has to be a collective mission of media and people saying, look, we need more of these new people in politics rather than the same old types.
Oh, okay. Dr. Tharoor of the Congress has recently started a working professionals forum within the Congress party.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps as a means to gain more voters back to the Congress.
Right.
Do you care to comment? Is that something?
No,
is that
no,
a model that the BJP and other political
No,
parties?
I don't know. I don't know what the intention of that is. I saw something on social media, and I don't know what that is. My view on everything that the Congress does, I'm a little cynical because it's usually some gimmick behind it, and I may be wrong on it, but I still look at it a little bit cynically. I'm not necessarily saying that there should be a separate category like you have Mahila wing and youth wing, that you should have a professional wing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying more and more professionals, whether they're women or youth or old, should find their place in mainstream politics. I don't want now to somebody to say I want 10% reservation for professionals. Mm-hmm. That's not what I mean. I meant the professionals, just like women, just like the youth, must get an equal opportunity to say what they have to say, to present what they have to present to the people of India. And if they have a desire to serve the people of India, they should be given an equal opportunity as anybody else by political parties.
Okay. Going beyond party politics, there exists a space for professionals to be inducted as lateral hires in policy positions and areas of expertise, given that the IAS is too generalist.
Yeah.
Why have political parties been reluctant to induct these people in these positions? Is the influence of the IAS so far-reaching that no government or party is willing to take it on?
No, that's a brilliant question, because I think today, since we're moving from the issue of politics to government, whether it is a state government or it's a municipal government or it is a central government, there is an almost monopolistic sort of a stranglehold by the IAS. On policy making, on being the arbiters of policy between the political leadership and the people. And I genuinely believe that we need to relook at that. We really need to look at people coming in laterally into policy making, not just into politics but also into governance, into delivery, into actually making sure, for example, if there is a metro being run, why can't we have, like we did with Sridhar, why can't we have the metro being managed by professional transportation professionals? Why can't we have the tourism department being run by people who understand the tourism dynamics, what customers want? Why can't we have Air India being run by somebody who understands what airlines have to be run as? Why should it be an IAS officer? So this is a question to which I can't answer. I mean, I completely agree with you that there should be more talent in what is otherwise a very general administrative cadre of the IAS. There are some people there who are very brilliant, but they seem to be the exception rather than the norm. This reluctance of the political class and government class to bring in people from the outside, whether it is an insecurity, whether it is guarding your turf, whether it is the inability to handle smart, bright people coming in from the outside, what it is it psychological, is it structural? I don't know. I think somebody in government can answer that.
Okay. How do you visualize the role of the state in the context of massive digital disruption? And for those who don't know, digital disruption is the change that occurs when new digital technologies and business models affect the value proposition of existing goods and services. So how does a Leviathan-like government swiftly reshape itself to understand and address complex policy challenges arising out of digital disruption?
I think they haven't figured it out. I think they don't know what is going to hit them. I think governments, whether they're the state government or the central government or ministries or bureaucrats, really have no clue what Digital India is going to unleash on them. I think they are still struggling to hold their little silos and turfs, hold their little pockets of information and burrows, not knowing that the full extent of Digital India is a deadly combination of an empowered citizen and an aware citizen on one hand, and the desire of those citizens to know more about government and participate more in government policy making. So the classic model that we have in this country, where citizen is on the outside the door and there is this inside the door thing with a bureaucrat and a politician, is going to be turned on its head. It is going to, you use the word disruption. I think you are being kind. The word is going to be, eruption, volcanic. You are going to have 65% of our demographic is young, impatient, and they are not going to sit outside the door, wait for some handout of information or data from a lazy bureaucrat. They're impatient. They want manifested in the way the governments respond to them, impatiently, fast, accurately, with integrity. So I think, and I have argued this extensively in Parliament and outside, that the biggest reform to the governance that we have, or government as an entity or a collection of entity, is going to be thrust on them by Digital India. We have all for many years talked about eloquently about government should change, government reform, transparency, accountability, and nothing has happened. If anything, corruption has increased at the state level, corruption has increased at the municipal government level. Digital India is a tsunami waiting to hit the vested interest, the classic old governmentalist, and change is going to be forced on those institutions and those people, whether they like it or not. So I have urged and argued that it is better for governments and government institutions to be ahead of the curve. Do it before the tsunami. Do it before a tsunami of expectations of people, especially the youth. Change before people come, break down the door and thrust the change on you. So you are absolutely right. We are in the next decade going to see dramatic, deep structural changes in the relationship between the citizen and the government within itself as group of institutions and group of ministries and departments.
As a successful entrepreneur and now as someone serving in public life, what would your advice be to professionals and entrepreneurs who are looking to enter politics or policy as a career choice?
No, so I say, look, I don't think I advise people to jump into politics. I don't think it's easy for 30-year-old or a 25-year-old just go from studying to politics. I think you have to gain some life experiences, because if you have to be effective in politics and you're not a classic Congress dynast and you don't have a famous last name, you will have to take something into your politics and public life that is real. So it is either some real knowledge or some real experience or some real skills. And those skills you have to build up, those knowledge and those experiences you have to build up. So you need a career in something. It could be in NGO, it could be in government, it could be in the military, it could be as an entrepreneur, it could be as a professional in a company. But having done that and made yourself financially secure to whatever extent you want to be, then I think taking a leap into politics and public policy is a good idea. Now let me also say this. I also encourage people when I go to colleges and schools and I speak, that even if you're an 18-year-old first-time voter or a 24-year-old, starting out in life as an entrepreneur or working in a company, there is nothing that precludes you from being aware of what is going on around you. I mean, amidst your partying and the music and the movies and your family, taking 10-15% of your time to read the newspaper, being aware of what is going on generally around you in what you call your democracy, is a good way of making you more aware and less gullible when the next elections come around and the smooth talking, smiling politician comes and gives you some yarn about what he's going to do for you. So being aware as you build out your life experiences before you take a decision to join real full public life is also a good thing to do, and I encourage that a lot. Because the smarter the citizens are, smarter the governments will get, and more responsive the governments will get. The more tuned out the citizens are, and more unaware and disconnected the citizens are, the more crooked the politicians will be, and the more out of control the governments are.
How do you bring about professionalism in politics? Are there any quick measures, such as one idea that has been floated about is increasing the salaries of politicians so that in the future you will get a lot more technocratic people in?
Yeah. No, so I don't think politics should ever be about making a livelihood or getting wealthy. So point number one. But I also think that there is a balance, that politicians should be given a decent standard of living, so that they don't struggle. And especially a Lok Sabha politician, they have a very, very challenging life. If you are not a minister, if you're a regular MP or an MLA and you really are dedicated and a dedicated public servant, it is not an easy job. You come, for example, to Bangalore for your assembly, and you have to travel to remote places which are unconnected by flight. You have to take trains that are difficult, buses. So commuting, connectivity, serving the community. I think a certain threshold of compensation and infrastructure should be afforded to all MLAs and MPs and corporators. But beyond that, I think what is required is to allow these public servants to be more empowered. So more information, more knowledge, more access to data, more access to libraries, so that the quality of debates, the quality of questions that they raise can go up. Look, let's be clear, like in any organization, like your organization or my organization or any business organization, the quality of the organization depends on the inputs that you put in. The quality of the people, the tools that you give them. If you give them good tools, good support, then the institution improves in quality. Similarly for parliament or legislature. If the people of this country, people of a state, people of a city say, we want our municipality, our legislature to be really a good quality one, then there is some certain investment that will have to be made to them. And I don't mean Toyota Innovas or Toyota Fortuners. I mean libraries, I mean connectivity, the ability of them to have offices and research assistants, etc., etc. So that is an investment that I think is worth doing to improve the overall legislative institutional quality in our country.
I'm going to change tack over here once again. What is your take on the 2018 Karnataka elections? What are the prospects for the BJP?
So I think we have about 120 days left. I think it's very early to call the election, but the first polls that have come out have indicated a couple of clear realities, which is it is clear that the Congress is not going to form the government. If it is going to be a choice between either a coalition of the Congress JDS, or if the JDS pulls off something significant, a JDS government, which is in my opinion not that likely, or a BJP government. So I think it is clear that the people of the state are going to make a decisive change in 2018 by voting out the Congress. That I think is pretty clear from the early polls. But what will happen in terms of who will actually form the government? Will the BJP, which seems to have gone back to its pre-KJP split levels, and they seem to have consolidated the KJP and the BJP, the pre-2013 levels. But they are still, in terms of vote share, neck to neck with the Congress. So who grows from here on, whether it will be the JDS, whether it will be the BJP, or whether it will be Congress that manages to claw back its lost space, which is unlikely. I think the next 120 days of hectic campaigning will show.
Okay. And finally, how confident are you of the BJP's prospects for a 2019 election in Kerala?
Oh, I think Kerala is ready to make a statement of change. It is quite clear and obvious from the last assembly elections, where the BJP NDA combined came second in almost 8 assembly segments, and they could win only one, but that was, I think, because the NDA started very late, mobilizing late. I am reasonably confident. I'll stick my neck out and I'll wager a bet today that in the next elections in Lok Sabha elections in Kerala will send at least 2, if not 5, between 2 and 5 Lok Sabha MPs to Delhi. And I am not saying this out of any hyperbole or guesswork. I can sense that Kerala wants to depart from 70 years of this UDF LDF nonsense.
Okay, that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.